I'm going to ask that question to our panel right now. I want to welcome back in the panel on this Thursday morning, Benjamin Weingarten, Christopher Arps, and Betsy McCoy. We'll get into the border stuff in just a minute, but I wanted to give Betsy and Benjamin a moment to weigh in on the news. So Rush Limbaugh, we were sad to see his passing, and there were questions as to whether or not his show would continue. I mean, he's got such a fan base, Betsy. I think that Dan Bongino taking over I think he's in a spot to succeed.
Absolutely. It's a very important show. It gave voice to an enormous and now growing concern in America for putting America first and protecting our Constitution. We need that show. We need that voice to grow larger and larger. Of course, we've also got it right here on Newsmax.
Betsy, thank you. Benjamin, quickly, this is one of those things. I mean, Rush Limbaugh saved AM radio. If you buy a car in most European countries, they don't even have an AM dial because there was no Rush Limbaugh there. If you buy a car here, 2021 models have AM radio, and that's largely because of Rush Limbaugh. Big shoes to fill, but Steve Young won a Super Bowl after taking over for Joe Montana, so it's happened before.
Yeah, Rush Limbaugh was a transcendent cultural and political figure, one of the top three most influential conservatives probably in the last 50 years, along with probably Reagan, Newt Gingrich, and then I guess Donald Trump as well. And Dan Bongino, the shoes are unfillable, and I think Dan would probably say that himself. But he's a tremendously talented, insightful, passionate, patriotic American. I had the privilege to interview him when he was just starting out as a public commentator 6 or 7 years ago when he wrote his first book, and you could see the talent and the potential then, and it's just been great to watch him rise as a figure, and I hope and trust that he'll be incredibly successful in this well-deserved position.
I think you said the same thing in an email to me, Benjamin, a week ago when you were on. All those exact same things.
So we'll see where you are in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Hopefully right here. I want to quickly talk about the filibuster situation that's happening in the Senate right now. This story's not getting a ton of attention, but the filibuster it's all about minority rights, the minority party in the Senate. The Dems, people forget, the Dems filibustered the COVID relief bill that might have gotten Donald Trump reelected in the fall. My question, Betsy, we'll start with you. Whatever happened to the good old-fashioned, Ted Kennedy, Orrin Hatch, they were famous for this, go in there and try to convince 60 senators that the bill you want to pass should pass?
Yes, that was the tradition, but I'm going to lay it on the line. There's nothing in the Constitution that requires the filibuster. According to the Constitution, a simple majority is enough to pass a law. The real problem here is that when Mitch McConnell was majority leader and the Republicans had the majority, they should have had the forethought to see what the Democrats would do. Mitch McConnell got bamboozled into protecting that filibuster when he could have repealed Obamacare and put through many more of Donald Trump's pro-America policies. Instead, he behaved like an inside Washington Beltway gentleman with a bipartisan understanding with Chuck Schumer. Only such a thing cannot exist.
Yeah.
Because the Democrats are knife fighters. McConnell should have taken away the filibuster instead of handing it on a platter for the Democrats to take away.
Chris, do you agree with Betsy? My thought is that Mitch McConnell is, he might not be the most popular politician, but he is aware that, sometimes you're in the majority, sometimes you're in the minority.
I do agree with her. I tell you, I actually support the reform that Manchin and the president were talking about, where we should go back to an old school filibuster where you actually have to stand on the Senate floor and talk for hours instead of having to do a filibuster from your office.
The talking filibuster.
Talking filibuster,
yeah.
But I don't support it in these times when the Democrats want to eliminate the filibuster to pack the Supreme Court and the pack states. That's something that I just can't agree with. But I do believe that there should have been reform, but we just can't trust these people that are in power now.
Benjamin, I remember Ted Cruz reading Dr. Seuss during one of those talking filibusters. Can't do that anymore.
Yeah, there's no more green eggs and ham on the Senate floor. A couple points. First, Democrats telegraphed the fact that they were going to try to nuke the filibuster when actually Barack Obama himself last year called it a Jim Crow relic. So obviously, if the filibuster is racist, that's just one of the many pretexts by which they could use to ultimately destroy it. Let's talk about, just for a second, the purpose of the Senate as an institution is not to be a majoritarian one. The House is sort of where the hot passions are allowed to flow, and you only need a majority to get policy through. But the Senate is supposed to be a more deliberative body. In theory, it's supposed to be calmer and sort of cool the hot legislation that comes out of the House. Obviously, if we erode the filibuster, the Senate is just going to become another majority institution and go further down this progressive slog that it's been on for about a century. But to Betsy's point, look, it's obvious the Democrats will use any and every means to achieve their agenda. And so the question Republicans should always ask themselves on any issue tactically is, what would Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer do were they in our shoes? And the fact that they don't react accordingly means that Republicans are generally going to lose over the long run.
I think you brought up hot passions. I think that's the perfect time for us to pivot to Andrew Cuomo and the situation in the state of New York right now. I don't think I've ever heard the House described as hot passions. I like that, though. Andrew Cuomo, we've been talking about it for weeks now. The cover-up here, Betsy, might be worse than the crime, but the situation that started to develop yesterday is just, I think it's abhorrent. So much for the Me Too and the Time's Up movements, by the way. But Andrew Cuomo is now being accused of trying to basically ruin the reputations of Lindsey Boylan and Charlotte Bennett, the first two accusers to come forward. Documents were leaked to the press, the newspaper up there in Albany. I know that Betsy, as the former lieutenant governor of New York, you're very familiar with that newspaper, claiming that Lindsey Boylan was a Trump supporter. Literally, they tried to claim that she is not credible because she supported Donald Trump, which is not true at all. She's running for Democrat right now, I think for comptroller of New York or something, but she's running as a Democrat.
Yes, she's running for Manhattan Borough president.
There it is.
And the fact is that this is typical hardball politics, and it's also typical of the way domestic violence accusers are treated. Often it's a smear campaign, right, so that they are less credible. But I'd like to warn about two other things that are happening. One is that there's a big delay strategy going on. Carl Heastie, the Assembly Majority Leader, is conducting a long and complex investigation before the Assembly votes on impeachment. Impeachment is just an indictment, so they could vote on that very soon. They don't have to prove their case before they vote. That's what would happen in the upper house, the New York State Senate. But you can see Heastie's going to have a very long and delayed investigation. And now the governor, amazingly, has announced he's conducting his own investigation with an outside firm.
That's good.
So all of this is delay, delay, delay.
Yeah.
Anything to delay the impeachment itself.
And New York, the state of New York, by the way, Betsy, has very strict retaliation laws, very strict. So, you know, right, Andrew Cuomo could be in trouble on another front here. Panel, thank you very much. Really enjoyed the conversation. We'll see you all again at the top of the hour. Betsy McCoy, Christopher Arps, Benjamin Weingarten. Great stuff as always.